What was the one thing that surprised me the most when I moved three wheels? And it wasn't the steering, it wasn't the weight, and it definitely wasn't what other people had to say about it. For me, it was the mental shift. And that was the one thing I wasn't prepared for. Because switching to a Can-Am Spyder is not just physical, it's really more psychological. And for my more mature riders out there, like in the Spyder community, that mental adjustment, it hits us all a little different. So today, let's talk about the real transition, the one that's happening between our ears. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Kevin, low budget Spyder rider, and today we're going to dive into the concept of the mental shift that no one warns us about when we transition to three wheels. If you come from two wheels like many of us did, you probably expected somewhat of a learning curve riding a Spyder. You expected new muscle memory, you expected a different handling, a different ride. But what most riders didn't expect is how much your mind has to let go. Because for years, maybe even decades for some of us, we built up this identity around riding a certain way, riding on two wheels. You gotta lean the bike, you gotta counter steer, you gotta balance at stops. Our body knew it, our brains trusted that whole process. And then one day, we throw our legs over a Spyder and suddenly our instincts are wrong. Not broken, just wrong for this type of machine. And that's where the real adjustment begins. Now, this is the part of the mental process that I call the switch. It's when we have to unlearn before we can relearn. And for some of us, that's not easy, especially for experienced riders, because experience is usually our strength. But during the transition of three wheels, experience can actually work against us because our brain keeps saying, lean into the turn, hold that balance. The bike feels different, so something must be wrong. But in reality, nothing is actually wrong. It's just that the Spyder plays by different rules at the end of the day. So from a more mature riding group, which many of us viewers are, we're likely built decades of riding habits. And those habits are deep within us. They're automatic, and we do them without thinking about it. And breaking the automatic patterns, it takes patience, and in some cases, even a little bit of humility. So stick with me here because in a minute, I'm going to share the exact moment that most riders realize they finally made that mental shift. If you felt it, you know exactly what I mean. And this is where we have to check our ego. And this is where we have to be honest with ourselves. One of the quietest challenges in moving the three wheels is the ego check. Because many of us come from two wheels with pride, with years of experience, in some cases thousands of miles behind us. And we built that confidence the hard way. Then we hop on that Spyder and suddenly we feel like a beginner all over again. And that can be uncomfortable for a lot of us. Uncomfortable to the point to where most of us decide that this is not even something we want to take on and we choose not to ride it. We choose to either go back to a different two-wheel platform or in some cases to the extreme where we choose not to ride at all. And this can mess with our heads if we let it. But here's the truth I want all of you to hear. Adapting to something new isn't weakness, it's wisdom. And at this stage of life, riding isn't about proving anything anymore. It's about staying in the wind, it's about being comfortable, and it's about staying in this riding game as long as we can. The riders who struggle the most with this mental shift are the ones who lack the skill to master it. And it's the ones who refuse to let go of how things used to be that struggle the most learning something new. Now, the biggest mental hurdle for a lot of us is simply trusting the machine. With two wheels, part of our focus was always on balance. Even when we didn't realize it, our brains constantly were making those tiny corrections that needed to be made to maintain balance. On the Spyder, the whole layer disappears. And at first, that feels a little strange, almost too stable. Some riders even describe it as it feels like I'm not doing enough. But that's the point. The Spyder is designed to take some of the workload off our plate. And for many of my mature riders, that's not a downgrade. It's just more freedom, less fatigue, less strain, more miles, the smile, where we can just simply focus on enjoying while we're out there. But our brains have to learn to trust that new reality, and that takes time in that rider's seat. And time is what you have to give it at the end of the day if you want to be successful at it. Now, this is the part that I promise, the moment where it clicks. When most riders know they made that mental shift, this starts to happen. It's the first ride where we stop comparing three wheels to two wheels. We're not second guessing ourselves on how to steer, and we're not mentally fighting the machine. We're just riding it. We're relaxed, we're giving smooth inputs, and we're simply enjoying everything around us. We're enjoying that moment, and that's what's important. To enjoy the moment while we're out here. And when that happens, and it will, that's when things begin to change. The Spyder stops feeling like an adjustment. It starts feeling like the ride that we come to know and love, whether it's on two wheels or three wheels. Now, the biggest thing we have to remember is once we make that mental shift and we kind of get that click, for many riders, this is where those longer rides start to feel easier. Those low speed maneuvers, taking those turns, start to feel more stable. Two-up riding definitely becomes more relaxed, and the Spyder really begins to make sense. But you have to give yourself permission. You got to give yourself permission to go through that short adjustment phase first, and that's normal when we take on anything new. I mean, it's rare that we're able to hop on such a complex machine, whether it's two wheels or three wheels, or even four wheels for that matter, just think right off the bat that we're going to know what to do. We have to give our time to learn the process that comes with that particular machine. Now, the biggest elephant in the room when we talk about this, for most of us, is going to be, is this still riding? And I'll tell you my honest answer. For me, riding isn't defined by the number of wheels that the particular machine has. It's defined by the experience that I have when I'm out there. I mean, for me, I love to have the freedom. I love to be able to just relax and enjoy those miles. And sometimes just riding with no place to go in particular. And for me, that's what riding is. It's not necessarily about a bike. It's just simply about the experience and enjoying the experience. And the Spyder delivers that experience in a very different way than two wheels. And if you allow yourself to have an open mind going into it, it'll make that adjustment a lot more easier. Because like I said earlier, a lot of us are defined by what we ride. We know that when we're riding two wheels in most groups, two wheels is probably the most acceptable riding platform. It's what most people ride. And we know we can show up on three wheels that can open ourselves up to being judged or to being questioned while we're riding that particular bike. And that can be something that a lot of us choose not to want to go through. We don't want to be questioned. We don't want to have to try to defend our decision. But at the end of the day, there's nothing to really defend here because it's simply a choice. And that choice is up to the individual to decide what's going to work best for them, what's going to fit the current season of their life. If it's two wheels, then continue to do two wheels. If it's three wheels, then do three wheels. If ultimately you make the decision to stop riding altogether, it is your choice. And it's not a choice to be taken lightly. It's a choice to be taken calmly. It's a choice to be well thought out. And it's a choice that once you make it, you need to understand why you made that choice. Now, to get ready to close this video out, I thought we'd do something different. Weather is starting to get a little warmer here. Snow is starting to melt. And today, I was able to have the opportunity to take Storm out for a brief ride. So I figured we do this last part while I ride Storm. If you find yourself right in the middle of a transition, you feel your brain is still catching up, the part of you is thinking, man, this definitely feels different. This is the part that I want you to hear clearly. You're not behind, you're not doing anything wrong, you're right in the middle of that mental shift that almost every one of us has gone through when we transition from two to three wheels. You have to give yourself time. You have to give yourself grace. And most importantly, no matter how uncomfortable it feels in the beginning, keep riding. Because the goal was never to ride the same thing forever. The goal was simply just to keep riding longer. If a Spyder allows you to do that, then there's nothing wrong with that at the end of the day. A lot of times in these videos, you'll see in the comments where we'll have different type of riders chime in, and some come with positive feedback, some not so positive. In my case, I try to welcome all feedback because I think it's important to understand all points of view as long as it's done in a very objective and a very respectful way. And I've talked about that in an earlier video. In my last video, I had a gentleman make the comment that he stopped riding tricycles when he was 5 years old, and that he's a very mature rider, and even being a very mature rider, he's still riding 2 wheels, not 3. And these are the type of people sometimes that will try to make you feel like riding 3 wheels is something that's bad, and it's not. It's simply your choice. As long as you understand the choice and why you're making the choice and what the choice is doing for you in your life, that's all that's important. It doesn't matter how long you can continue to ride 2 wheels, and it doesn't matter when you start riding 3. What matters is you simply ride. And I'll end the video with that. If this video has helped you understand what you've been feeling, do me a favor, hit that like and subscribe button. Join the low budget Spyder rider community. More Spyder content coming. Remember to always live for the experience, and definitely enjoy the ride. Peace.